Hello ninth graders, welcome back to OnTrack. My name is Andrew, and in this module I will be talking to you about how to develop strong study skills. You're in high school now, you're going to be taking more tests, harder tests, so your study skills have to be as good as possible to be able to get the grades that you want for those tests. So what are some tips and tactics that we have for you to improve your studying ability? Well, first let's start with math and science classes. In those classes you're going to see a lot of formulas and sequences and patterns that you're going to have to memorize so that when you sit down to take that test, you're good to go. You have all that information in your head. And what's a good way to memorize those? Well, for any memorization type of thing that you need for a class, flashcards can be really helpful, no matter what type of class. For all of these types of classes that we're going to be talking about in this slide, flashcards can be helpful. I'm just going to mention them in the first one, but they can be helpful for those for your English classes and your social study classes as well. So keep that in mind. Also know our next module will actually be a more in-depth module about studying for math and science classes, as we know that those can be really difficult for a lot of students, so we want to go more in depth on that. Next, for your language arts, your English classes, this is going to involve maybe knowing grammar rules, knowing vocabulary, knowing the material of whatever you've read so that you can write essays or short answers. So how do you prepare for these? Well, for those vocab or grammar rules, make up vocab sheets or, again, flashcards to help you memorize them. Also, just practice your writing. The more writing you do, the better you're going to get at it, so that when you have time on that, or when it comes time to do that on the test, you're prepared and able to write in a way that gets you that A or that B that you really want as your grade. So, and then lastly, what about social studies classes? What do you have to do there? Well, that's going to involve analyzing facts and explaining events, seeing, okay, here's what happened, here's what led to this war, or here's why this revolution happened or whatnot. So how do you go about studying for that? Well, timelines and outlines can really help you sort of put together in your head, okay, this happened then, and then after that this happened. And in your notes on those timelines, right, this happened because of these factors that you went over in class. And this is where looking over your notes from class can be really helpful. We always talk about the importance of note-taking, and then when it comes time for your test, sitting down and going over those notes thoroughly is a great way to prepare for tests and get better at studying. What are some other studying strategies that you can take to really improve how prepared you are when it comes to being getting and sitting down and taking that test? Well, first, studying with a group or a partner can be extremely helpful, because you can bounce off each other and say, okay, I know this, let me talk this out, and then I'm not sure about this one, can you help explain this to me? You two or multiple people can sit there and really help those who maybe don't know one thing, or you know one thing and can help someone, and then they know something else and they can help you. Whatever the give and take may be, it can be really helpful to sit down with a group or even just one other person and go over your notes or go over what you need to know for a test. Also, just saying things out loud, whether, again, it's in this group setting or with yourself. Read your notes, read the texts that you have to know for a quiz or a test out loud to yourself as a way to help you remember it. I know that helped me a lot. I used to read things out loud or just say things out loud, like think in my head and then say it out loud, and do that as a way to really prepare myself and know that when I sat down on a test and I saw that question, I could go right in my head and know that that answer was there. Also, do practice problems. This is especially helpful for math or science, but even with English and social study classes, have someone say, all right, if you get this question, what's the answer? Practice it beforehand, because then you'll be more prepared to actually do it when you see that on the test. For any readings that you have, make sure you go and look under any headlines that say check your understanding. That can have really good tips and tactics for understanding what you would have just read in that chapter or section or whatever it may be. And also, a really important point for when you're studying by yourself, find a quiet environment and eliminate distractions. Put away your phone. Don't be talking to other people. Don't be doing video games. Don't have the TV on in the background. Find a quiet environment. Maybe you put on headphones and put on some music just as a way to sort of drown everything out. That's perfectly fine. I did that when writing and studying, especially as I got higher up and had harder things to deal with. It was really good for me to drown everything out by just listening to music and having that in the background. Whatever you might have to do to study as best as possible, do that, but it should usually be a fairly quiet environment. You're not going to study well in a room where there are a bunch of people talking and hanging out. That's just not going to be the best possible environment. Before I go into this last slide, just so you know, the college keyword for this module is the Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Again, that's Indiana University of Pennsylvania. So this last slide is just for tips for reading your textbooks. When you're reading over the books you have and the readings you have for class, what are the best possible ways to really get everything you need out of it? Well, first preview it. Look over what you need to read and the different sections that you're going to see in that reading. Then recite to yourself, what do I need to know from this reading? What am I trying to take from this reading? That'll help you as you read, because you'll think, oh, I see that information, that's really key. I know I need to find that. Teacher mentioned that. Let me make a note about it. And then also review. Go back and take another look at key concepts in your readings, especially if you have a test coming up. That can be really helpful. Your notes and your readings are usually going to make up most of the information you need to do well on those tests. So I hope this was helpful. As always, if you have any questions for us, send them to us at questions@uif.org. Thank you for joining me, and make sure that you stay on track.